Oh my God, everyone is in here so fast. And I opened Zoom room. I was like,
Now you can look at this answer.
No, this is in a class.
What?
This is in a class.
welcome. Nice to see you, Jad. You
Hey,
look very
what's up?
nice.
Yes, great to see you too.
Love the style.
Thank you.
Looks wonderful.
The last time you saw me, did I have my afro? Did I have my fro?
You did. Yeah.
Oh my God.
It looks very nice. You look
Thank
great.
you. Thank you.
Wow, already 20 people. Super excited. How was your day? How are you feeling? How is your week started?
Good, good. Work isn't too busy. I just moved to a new place. I was living in Bed-Stuy and now I'm living in Crown Heights. So I'm enjoying the new apartment. It's wonderful. Yeah.
That's nice. That's nice. I'm very happy for you. Changing the environment helps for sure because we're stuck at home and you stare at the same wall.
Right. That's why you seem in a good mood today because I needed this fresh start. If I was in the other place, I would be like in my tank top and like about to fall asleep, but like
I'm in a tank top.
it's fine. It's fine. I decided
Classic.
not to wear a tank top today. I'm like I have to look presentable. Because why? Because I invited some of my students from post university.
Oh,
So
really?
yes, I know this is for Baruch students. Hey guys. Hey guys. But I did send because I'm teaching two classes at post university, so I sent my students the link if they want to join because it's very relevant to them. I'm teaching media and communications classes at post, so
Definitely.
I think it will help them out a lot. So I have to look presentable for them because I'm their
You
professor.
always look good. It's also not about how you look, like the information you always deliver is just incredible.
Oh,
And the
uh,
energy, yeah, definitely. And the energy is amazing as well. So um, I remember when I first time I met you, I was like, who is this guy? And then when you started to talk, I was like, wow, this guy.
it
It was nice.
it gets crazy when I open my mouth and start talking. That's when you were like, what's going on?
Inspiring, very inspiring.
Really, really.
I think we'll wait a couple minutes and see how everybody is joining.
No problem. I have a slide that I want to share, but I can share whenever I want, right? Or do you want me to send it to you?
No, you can share it. Sure, definitely. I think it will be easier on your own. I allowed you to share the screen. So,
Okay, perfect.
yeah. Please, everyone, when you join, just turn your mic off so we don't have any issues with that. It's such a different environment. I remember being in school in club.
Mm.
It's so nice to see everyone, but then Zoom.
And no one's going to Baruch. There's no classes being hosted in Baruch right now. It's all
No,
online.
all online. Today they have sent an email that you might reserve like a study room or something like that. I think
Okay.
some students need that, but I don't think classes. No, unfortunately.
Okay. Okay, no problem. I mean, it is what it is with most of the classes. At Post, it's the same thing. Everything is online, so they're not going to open until the spring, probably.
Yes, I'm sure they will not. Yeah.
All right.
Oh, I love this. You're the better host than I am. I'm still
I'm not.
learning.
I'm not trying to overtake you. No, I'm like, let me just see what's going on here. Hey, hello
Hey.
everyone. Promise, I prepared something nice for you today, Olga. After we had the conversation, there were there were quite a few things that I thought about on how I want to orient this workshop, and I want to start off by saying actually, to everyone before you do introduction that this session and the presentation that I'm giving, there is no right or wrong. Because I've noticed a trend ever since, panel discussions have been happening that like a lot of, and this is no shade or no judgment or critique to professionals in the field, but there's always this like, here's what you should do mentality. Here's what you should follow. Here's the track that you should do. Here's are the points that you need to follow. Here's what you need to do to be successful. How to be successful and all of that. And I think these are all coming from experiences and they impose their experience on others. In my discussions, you can do whatever you want. There is no right or wrong. You shouldn't be doing what I'm telling you. I'm just telling you what I did, and I'm just
Mm-hmm.
giving you my experience and what I have found to be successful for me. And hopefully, this will give you a new perspective on things, because the point of this session is simply for you guys to come out of it. Like, my purpose is for you guys to come out of it and think of, like, oh, I've never thought of this topic that way. I've never thought of the industry in that matter. And I just learned a new perspective today. So, what can I learn from this perspective? So, this is all learning. You can take it or leave it. You can take it, mold it, shift it, do whatever you want with it. So, there's really not a 1 + 1 = 2 um, um, presentation, honestly. This is my experience in my field. Some people may not agree with it. Some people may agree with it. Some people may question it. Some people may go along with it. So I just want everyone to know that, like,
Mm-hmm.
there's not a do or don't, out of this session. It's just presenting to you my experience and how your experience can relate to that.
Right. And the beauty of being in school and a student is to learn, right? And to listen to the stories and just maybe not repeat some of the mistakes,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And I think it's, who said that? I don't remember. It's when you stop learning, you're like dead. So I'm very glad that we have sessions like that and we learn from such amazing people like you are, Jad.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. Okie dokie. So let's see. We have many people here. Please, everyone, when you join, just mute yourself so we don't interrupt the speaker. And you can use chat if you have any questions.
Yes.
Do you, Jad, prefer to ask questions at the end or?
Questions at the end in person, but I definitely encourage everyone to post comments, and I will be reading your comments
Sure.
while I'm giving. So please, any comment, any question, like, you have that is a quick question, like, very quick, short answer questions during the call would be great. But throw in your comments. You have comments to say regarding anything, throw them in, and I will definitely make sure to, like, give a shout out or highlight them, and relating them to the content. So, yep.
Right. Yep. So we'll ask questions at the end.
Mhm.
Guys, you just write them down. I'm going to keep the list. Or you can just personally write me the question. What else? Let's wait 1 more minute and we'll start. And I hope everybody is in a good mood today and feeling okay. Almost there. Okay, let's start then.
Mhm.
So today we have Jad-Évangelo, I hope I pronounce it correctly, Nasser, because it's hard for me as well. He is the very experienced, multilingual, multidisciplinary media creative. He has many years of experience as account manager and creative strategies with strategies with major companies like BBDO, Wunderman Thompson, McCann World Group, and TransPerfect. He always focused on managing creative campaigns and strategies for multicultural markets like Middle East, North Africa, Europe, US market. And because of that, we really wanted to invite Jad and to speak about the importance of multicultural communication and importance of culture and what insights you can get from different cultures, so you can implement this into work with your colleagues, with the clients. And Jad, that's your floor. Go ahead. You can introduce yourself and share more information. But we are very happy to have you today.
Thank you so much, Olga. I really appreciate it, and thank you everyone for having me. It's really wonderful to, be part of this wonderful group that you guys organized. That I think is very important, very beneficial for Baruch College, especially nowadays. With everything going on, like how do we venture the world in a new normative lifestyle in the industry? So I think this is wonderful. This is a great start. And Olga, again, I congratulate you for, taking lead on this. And I will mention your example and our relationship, our professional relationship throughout the talk and how that relates to the content. Like I said, I really want to, present to you guys my experience working in the field, coming from like Olga said, like a multilingual background. Just to give you a little bit a background about myself. I was born and raised in a very small village in Lebanon. My mom is Lebanese. My dad is Haitian and Palestinian. His grandfather migrated from Haiti, and he was born and raised in Palestine, then came to Lebanon. And I spent all my life, studying advertising and working in advertising, mostly on the client servicing side. But I did start off as a copywriter, and I've been through the whole 360 department of the media industry, from public relations, media production, content management, social media content, all of that. But I was always on the creative strategy slash people relationship side of things. So I always like client facing. And throughout these years, I've realized that I really had, like, my strongest asset was being client facing and people facing. I just found a really natural trait of just being comfortable with people from the moment that I meet them. And I just went along with that intuitive action. I've worked with BBDO, Wunderman Thompson, McCann, back in Lebanon, Dubai, Saudi Arabia. So I come from a heavy Middle East market background. I work for those markets, also for North Africa, for Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria, and being multilingual, I speak French, Arabic, and English fluently, and I've learned Spanish when I came to New York and enhanced on my Creole as well. So I've always utilized my linguistic skills in my field, because growing up in Lebanon, everybody tends to be trilingual. So, and if you go to advertising agencies in Lebanon, they most probably all of them speak French, because we've been colonized by France for a while. And aside from that, I've taught at NYU as a guest lecturer on content narratives by people of color in media, and I'm the creator and director of Once Upon a Color, which is a musical documentary that is now live on Amazon. And it's about, artists of color in New York City. It was actually my master thesis that I did at the New School, where I graduated from, in digital storytelling. And it was about creatives of color in New York and how they venture white American or white dominated spaces. Jessica, we are not worthy of you. Stop now. Come on now. Just already giving me the hype. But yeah, that's just a little bit of background about myself. And I kind of like want to dive into why I wanted to present, multicultural communication as a very important topic nowadays. Um, from my experience, I'll give you a very short example. Growing up in Lebanon, Arabic was our first language. We spoke Arabic until like 1943. 1943, or was it 1934? Don't, this is my history and I forgot the actual date. But anyway, we've been colonized by France. So France came in and they were like, oh, we're just going to, mandate this whole country and impose our ideologies on them. And then after that, everybody started speaking French. And, French has been a dominant language. So now we have French schools. Now we became, French speaking people. And that would have never happened if we haven't been through like colonization. But that has made us learn until this day today that we can venture other French speaking countries. So when a Lebanese person goes into other countries where French is dominant language, they excel right away because they speak the language very well. Same thing for English. So when they come to the United States, they immerse right away because it's easy for them. And a lot of people here say like, oh my God, you speak English so well, and they just don't know that like, well, we've been colonized. That's why we speak English so well. That's why it's easier to culturally immerse ourselves into a foreign place. Now, hold the pause on that and just pinpoint it really quick. I just want to tell you guys a little bit about like what I do because I know this is a marketing oriented session. I'm an account manager and client servicing specialist. So I am the liaison between the creative or tech team, the people who do the craftsman work, to provide a service to a client who are the representative of a brand or entity and they want these services. So I would be considered the middleman of, those two teams. Now I work at TransPerfect, which is a media localization and translation company. So we localize and translate advertising campaigns to multiple languages. Given my linguistic background, I'm very familiar with multiple cultures and, multiple, cultural campaign localization projects into different countries. So what I do is I meet up with the clients. They say like, we have this advertising campaign. It's in English. It's for Mercedes. We want to localize it to the Spanish market. My job is to give them a cultural consultation, like which Spanish market or Hispanic Latin American market? Is it for Colombia? Is it for Puerto Rico? Is it for Dominican Republic? And what are you trying to target? What is the messaging? So I work with my creative team of like, we need a copywriter, a Spanish copywriter who's familiar with the target in Dominican Republic or in Puerto Rico. And they work to create the copy and present it to the client. And my job is to be the liaison between the two. Now there's a lot of stuff happening. I also work with a sales department to work on budgeting and budget proposals and all of that. So my job entails a lot of like project management, consultation, being intuitive and on point onto how to communicate and everything. So it's very people facing and it's highly dependent on communication and understanding, how to manage multiple teams, And the reason why I want to mention that is like, how does multicultural communication intersect with a role that is client facing? So for someone who comes from a different, multicultural background and being client facing, how does that come into effect? So also put a point on that. As you can see, I'm going through my slides, but I'm giving you bits and pieces and you guys can like understand like the puzzle that comes together into the conclusion of this campaign, conclusion of this, this presentation. A little bit of a history of what's been going on in the world with, American corporations. And I'm talking specifically in media and communications here. I don't know about medicine, engineer, architecture, design. These are not my fields. I'm talking from a media perspective. American corporations normally follow a unified, scripted, and traditional business system. Now, that is my perception of how I've seen things from what I've read, from what I've explored, and what I've realized. Because take a look at it this way, all the other countries, like look at, for example, in India or in Dubai or in London, there are a lot of advertising and media agencies there, but a lot of them stemmed from the initiation of these companies in the United States. Like, for example, Viacom. Viacom originated in the States, and then Viacom has MTV and BET and all these news, and now you have MTV Arabia, and now you have MTV Europe, and now you have MTV Latin America. So it's the idea of globalization and localization. Globalization is usually originated from the United States, and they have a unified traditional business system that they follow, and then they incorporate that system into different cultures. Now, the United States and America in general, and this is again no shade, there's not really a culture here. It's very systematic. When we talk about systematic things, it's made up things. It's built upon, you know, immigrants coming in and providing resources, and then American corporations just utilize these resources to create a system, you know? And you've really and kind of realized that by living here for a while. So when they create their companies or originate their companies, they have a specific system that they follow that they create, but it stems out of them coming together and putting things together, you know? Now, if you take that company and this company wants to branch out into different cultures, for example, MTV, all right, and it stems into MTV Europe or MTV Asia, you know, the people, the professionals who work in these countries will localize this company and make it relevant to their market. Now, the difference is because these countries come from a cultural background or because they have a lot of cultural power influence in them, they reshape it and reshift it and rethink this whole system and make it relevant to them. So now MTV Arabia is relevant to MTV in the Middle East. And it's more cultural because it's relevant to its target market. So you realize that a lot of countries imitate the United States with their companies and their content and everything. Like American Idol, for example. Now you have Arab Idol or Asian Idol or Africa Idol, but they become relevant to these countries and everything. And when you take those business modules that are integrated into different countries, they have a very different perception of things. They are used to rethinking, reshaping, seeing things in a different way. So, which brings me to say that if you bring a professional from these countries to the United States and they present those new thinking or progressive or new ways of rethinking a business module, American corporations will be like, okay, this is surprising because we're not used to anyone doing this. But for you as an immigrant, for a lot of people who are immigrants, they're like, well, this is what I'm used to doing. This is kind of like normal for me. And when you present that, that's when you kind of like reshape modules and everything. From just a quick question, anybody here has immigrant parents in the United States or was born in a different country and migrated to the US for studies and everything? Can you put them in the chat really quick? Just so I know. Just let
Yeah.
me know from where.
Sorry, quick question. Do you want
Yeah.
to put play so we see a whole expanded presentation? I didn't want to interrupt you.
I will put play. Oh yeah, there we go. There we go.
Thank you.
Does that work? Awesome. So, okay, DR, come through Egypt. Zayik. Who do we have here from Egypt? Usra. All right. Italy, Mexico, DR. See, there we go. Paraguay, Colombia, and Albania. All right, see, so you guys come from everywhere around the world, see? And I'm pretty sure you can resonate with me on understanding when you come here and then you just be yourselves and you speak in your own accent. And then sometimes people look at you and they don't understand your communication. Am I right? Can anyone like agree on that? Or does that experience resonate with anyone? Like when you're speaking in English in your accent and you're saying something, but you're thinking in your mother tongue and you're translating, yet they look at you, they're like, I don't understand what you're saying. That has happened to me a lot. I'll give you a very brief example. I remember once when I was out with my friends and I was really hungry. And so I just said out loud, like to them, knowing me because I'm Lebanese and I'm Lebanese and loud, and I'm also Haitian, so I'm very loud. So I would just said out loud, oh my God, like I really want to put something in my mouth right now. And that's what I said out loud in front of the whole school. And then people just looked at me and they're like, what? What do you mean you want to put something in your mouth? I'm like, what do you mean? What do I mean when I put something in my mouth? I'm hungry. What the hell did you think that I meant? So I was surprised that they were surprised. I'm like, they don't understand what I'm saying. So people just like looked at me and they're like laughing, like that doesn't you can't say that here. And then it made me think, well, who said that I can't say that here, honestly? So is it the system that is very imposed on us? And now you understand what I mean. Who said what is right or wrong in the United States? Who said that this is how you should write an email because this is the correct way? And when you're an immigrant or you come from a different, business sense, you're like, but isn't there a different way of doing this? And when you say different, people look at you in a weird way. Like, You like, why do you want to do things differently? And then you have like a why not mentality, but like, why not? Isn't this more simple for you? Can we not do a system for you? Can we not have a different project management software for you that I've learned that has been easier? You don't want to, listen to my ideas. And you can realize that the conflict that happens with a lot of like diverse, employee environments is that like a lot of people, have a hard time digesting immigrant or other ideologies because they're not used to that. And our challenge as immigrants coming, from a multicultural background is we're trying to educate people. And what we're trying to say to, American corporations is like, we're here to work with you. We're not here to take over your jobs. We're not here to change everything. We're here to learn what you have given us. Learn what you have given us. You've said everything. You had the privilege and the resources of having this power. We want to learn from this power, but we want to help you with what we brought from, our experiences from back home. Because, let's suppose, for example, you are a creative and you come from New Delhi, India, and then you're working in an advertising agency in the States, and they have a campaign that they want to localize to the India market. A white person, most likely in the creative, is not going to understand the cultural insights of New Delhi. And let's start off with that. New Delhi is different from Bangalore, from Mumbai. These are like three different areas in India that are like not the same, and they have like different linguistic styles and everything. So you coming from this part of the world, you would understand. So as a creative, as a copywriter, you know what to say. You know how to bring the research and everything in comparison to, white Americans who claim that they know because they just know. You understand what I'm saying? So let's take, for example, this experiment, and I want you guys to give me your thoughts. So, all right, UNICEF wants to work with an advertising agency, and then we have two advertising agencies, A and B, who want to approach UNICEF to give a pitch presentation. And they want to change the educational systems in North Africa and East Asia. All right? And these two companies, A and B, want to pitch their ideas. Company A is made up of, I don't know, Jeff, Donovan, and Tim, I guess, who one of them was born and raised in Oregon, or I don't know, in North Carolina or something. I don't know much about them, but these are these three white guys who have worked for 20 years in advertising and marketing. They worked there for 20 years. Group B, those five individuals from Group B come from, let's suppose, like Nigeria or Thailand and Colombia and, I don't know, China and Germany. All right? So each and every single one of them has maybe like 5 or 6 years of experience. They come from different backgrounds. One of them comes from a nonprofit background. Another one comes from an educational background. So they don't have the advertising experience as much as Group A. Which of these two groups would you think would most likely, I'll give you the answers right away, will most likely do a very efficient campaign? Can you tell me in the chat? The answer, most probably, everyone says B. All right. So let's start. Jade, why do you think it's Group B? Calling people out, maybe they're a little bit shy. But Jade, did you want to answer? I'm just calling out random names. All right. How about Eric? Eric Sander.
They're more experienced on like the local culture, so that's why it's like it would be better if they took charge of the marketing campaign.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's definitely the best answer, because like they have more experience within the culture. They are working with UNICEF, and it's North African, East Asian markets. Even if none of them were born in North Africa, they would find cultural intersections that we're going to talk about, that they would find related to this market, and they would do that very well. So yes, let me go really quick here. So answer A is unlikely. Them by these three white guys by themselves will likely not do the best campaign. Answer B is most likely. But here's the thing. How about A and B together? And hear me out. Hear me out. So let's suppose these two companies work together. if we take the privileges, resources, advances, and power status of company A, who've had the privilege as white Americans of working in this company, their resources and their advantages, and combining them with the talent, the resource, the insight of Group B. Together, chances are we will gonna come up with a very bombast campaign. You know, we will take advantage of or utilize the privilege and the advantages and the resources of Group A because knowing how America is systematic, you know, predominantly white Americans have the advantage. Even if they don't have the talent, they have the advantage of getting where they want, you know. And immigrants and people of color do not have those advantages, but they have the talent, the insight, and that's how they venture everything. So if you combine those together, this is what would be most likely a very well generated result. And if you want, that would be like the conclusion of, you know, this whole presentation when you're working at a company or when you're approaching a company or applying to a company or when you're working in a multicultural setting. It's understanding that we're not here to like chase away white Americans and then put immigrants and then that's it. You know, that's not the mentality that a lot of people think from the other end. It's about working together. It's about immigrants coming into American corporations, bringing in their cultural insights and building up their dynamics with Americans and people from around them, and everybody brings something to the table. So consider when you're baking a cake, you know, the cake would probably be amazing if everyone puts in a little bit of spices on it, you know, not spices, like ingredients on it, you know. You're making like a stew and everybody puts their own spices that they feel that they resonate with, and then you'll have an amazing, very tasty stew. So that's most likely, you know, what we're trying to achieve, or what I'm trying to achieve in my career and in my business setting. So, which brings me to say, we tend to adapt to our environments and we tend to immerse culturally. So, what is adaptation to environment technically? A lot of you may say it's code switching, and code switching is an interesting term. I necessarily don't use it. I usually talk about adaptation. Um, and when we talk about adaptation, is like how do people from cultural backgrounds adapt to their environments, you know, depending on where they're from. Again, so remember the example of, you know, Lebanon being colonized by the French, and then we didn't speak French until 1943, and then after that, a lot of Lebanese started speaking French. So if you take a Lebanese person and throw them in France, full of all these white French people, and they don't look the same, chances are they will find a way to immerse themselves because they speak the language, you know. If you take a multilingual person and give them to a company where most of the people speak their mother tongue, they will immerse better. Or even if it's not from the same country, let's go, for example, you work in an ad agency, it's full of, you know, people from Europe and North Africa, and you're from Latin America. Chances are you might immerse yourself way more than the general or average white American, simply for one reason: cultural immersion and cultural intersection. You will find common things that you have with your culture and their culture, and you will build on that dynamic. And that brings me to another scenario that I want to present as well. So let's suppose a company is hiring a social media manager who's familiar with beauty products and understand consumption of beauty products in different markets in the US and in Latin America. And they want to redefine beauty standards. So they have two applicants. A is Jahaira. She was born and raised in Algeria, speaks English, French, and Arabic because Algeria has been colonized by the French, you know, and people speak Arabic in Algeria, and she lives in the US, so she speaks English very well. And she has worked in Dubai for 4 years. She's a blogger, and she's familiar with North African market. Now, Katie, on the other hand, was born and raised in Oregon and comes from a 7-year experience working in L'Oreal. So again, we're talking about like status and advantages, you know, of Americans who were born and raised here. Who would you hire if you were the HR person? Again, in the chat. And don't be shy though. By the way, I'm not going to be mad at you if you say B, like, that's totally fine. I mean, you know, Katie probably will do really well. So most of you said A, which is, which makes sense depending on what this company wants. Now, hear me out though. that doesn't mean that B isn't fit for the job. And B as a consultant. Olga, I like how you're thinking. B as a consultant, that actually is a really good strategy. Well, which brings me to say that doesn't mean that B won't do the job very well. Katie probably um, Katie probably will do the job very well. I mean, she might do the job very well, but when it comes to working on a campaign and cracking the cultural insight, will Katie know what to present? She's gonna have to do like a lot of research and understand and everything and all of that, and she may not be as intuitive as Jahida because Jahida already knows, already understands. She works in the field. But what does Katie bring to the table? L'Oreal and 7 to 8 years of experience. Jahida may not bring L'Oreal because it's a high fashion brand. She doesn't work for a high fashion brand. And she may not bring 7 years, but she brings other things that this company may not know that they need. And that's cultural immersion. Like she has immersed herself with the culture. She understands how to narrate or target the specific audience simply because she's immersed herself before. And when we talk about multicultural communication and power dynamics between people, if you have learned to immerse yourself with cultures, you will understand how to navigate professional business settings when working with people from multiple backgrounds. Because take a look at it from this way, and I will talk on my experience regarding that. A lot of native, and again, I'm not throwing shade for white Americans or everything. I'm just stating a fact. I'm just stating, my testimony of what I've seen. A lot of white Americans sometimes follow the same script. We talked about scripted, traditional platforms, traditional strategies in the beginning. And working as a client servicing manager, like when I hear a lot of salespeople or like other account managers talking to their client, it's the same repetitive script. Hey, how are you today? So yeah, so we provide these services and this is what we'll do. And it's the same over and over and over again. And when you look at who they're talking to, like a lot of people are not Americans from your clients. They might, even if they are, do you think they want to hear that over and over and over again from a different person? It's becoming repetitive. Sometimes I just forget who is Kimberly and who is Ashley and who is Jessica because I'm like, they all sound the same. I'm like working with this salesperson or this salesperson. I'm like, who's who again? Because y'all sound the same to me. So I can't tell who is who. But for people who come from different backgrounds who've immersed themselves, or even white Americans who have immersed themselves, will know how to adapt differently. We're more intuitive. We're more, we mold ourselves with how we communicate to people. Like for example, I will give you an example of myself. For me, like this is how I'm talking to you guys right now, but like my accent goes off a little bit. But this is like a panel setting, so I'm adapting to my environment. I'm adapting to talking like that. But if you throw me in a room full of Haitians, I'll be speaking Creole and French all the time. If you throw me in a room full of Jamaicans, it'll be a whole. If you throw me in a room full of Arabic-speaking people, and I'm pretty sure Usra will understand what I'm saying, that's a whole different Jad. Like you'll be like, my friends sometimes look at me and they'll be like, how, like when you speak French, you're a whole different person. I'm like, I'm not a whole different person. I'm the same person. I adapt to my environment. And when I came to the US, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you can resonate on that as well, there's this mentality that like, we have to perfect our English. We have to perfect how we talk. We have to speak like, like white Americans and present ourselves and everything. And that's how I was at first, but I got tired of it. And sometimes I do get tired of it, So at some point I'm like, my authentic self is messing up the grammar. And I know it's not ideal, but how is me messing up my grammar a standard? Like, what does that define me in my business sense? And here's another thing, like, you get critiqued on like, oh, this sentence doesn't sound very right, or I don't understand what you're saying. I'm like, you don't understand what I'm saying because you have never worked with someone like me before. You have never immersed yourself with someone like me before. And this comes to power dynamics between race, culture, behavior, expression, and, expression in the workplace. Like, there's a lot of dynamic happening, when you are a person of color, an immigrant working with, white Americans or maybe Europeans. Again, we're not saying that like, white Americans are the enemy. That's not what I'm saying. It's just understanding how to navigate white American corporations, because believe me,
Sound, Jad, sound. We
oh,
lost you.
oh,
You said believe me?
okay, yes, yes. Sorry, I didn't mute myself though. When I tell you that there's like a lot of white American professionals who have traveled to other countries, or haven't traveled, but they're very knowledgeable and very culturally adaptive, that they understand it right away. And these are the white people to keep. These are the white friends to keep. Believe me, honestly. If you run across a friend who is white American and they're very culturally immersed, you have to keep them for life. They're a treasure, honestly. I hate to say that, making objectifying them, but it really is like, because it's meaningful. For me, it is meaningful to have, a friend who is American and they're very appreciative of culture. Because think of it that way, like we are, when you're born and raised in America, you're born and raised in this big bubble, and you have all the resources and all the education and all, how do you say, like all the advantages and the resources to learn about anything around the world, yet a lot of people choose to be stuck in their own bubble. Some people don't even have a passport, which I get it. You don't have to, but like you have the internet, which is faster than other countries. While we go, for example, to Cameroon, or you go to Palestine, for example, where the internet is slow, you don't have the advantages, and people don't have these resources, yet they come to the United States and they have more global knowledge than the average American person. It's kind of embarrassing, because why, for me, growing up, for example, like in Palestine, with not having all these resources, coming to the US and having this global mindset while you had all the resources here, yet you didn't choose to have a global thinking, that's where you understand your dynamic with other people, because you've worked to get out of your culture and you took the good things from your culture and adapted them in your field. So these are just a few things to think about, when you're navigating any kind of space. Um, what else? And that also brings us to like a lot of barriers. There's a lot of cultural barriers that are happening. But what about cultural intersections, though? We talked about that a little bit, where your culture intersects with another culture. Another example, personal example. I came here. Everyone thought I was a Dominican from the Bronx. The moment I stepped out of the train, I had like a snapback on and a hoodie, and like everyone thought I was Dominican. And I had to tell people like I'm not Dominican. I'm actually Haitian and Lebanese. So people will be shocked, like, oh, I didn't expect that. And then people like, your behavior is very, I mean, your behavior can also tell that you're like Dominican or Puerto Rican. And that's the reason why I learned Spanish, because I've kind of like naturally integrated with like Latin culture, even though I'm not Latin. But I realized that naturally I have a lot of common grounds with Latin Americans, specifically with Puerto Ricans and Dominicans. So our cultures intersect with each other. So when I work with someone, a client who's from Latin American market, I kind of like intuitively understand and adapt my language or my linguistics to them, because I don't come from your culture, but I can see where we intersect. I can see our commonalities. And that's something that I encourage everyone to advocate for your American cohorts or your American born, raised citizen cohorts or colleagues, is like, why don't you look into how you have commonalities with a person from a different background? Have you ever thought about that? You can always advocate about this. Like I ask my friends, like, what things do we have in common? Like I try to find the common grounds between me and anybody, even people who are like completely different from me. I will try to find something that is culturally uh, culturally common between us, and we'll build up on that, because unfortunately we live in a country where people are naturally inclined towards the divide and the segregation more than the common grounds. And if you look at New York City and how it advertises diversity and inclusion, I'll tell you this from the top. And I'm pretty sure, Kenny has talked about this before on the last talk, but it is complete, utter bullshit. It is the definition of bullshit because the idea of diversity and inclusion in America is a Shutterstock photo, is a Shutterstock video, it's a commercial. It's a bunch of black, brown, Asian people doing a thumbs up and smiling on camera and let's promote this. And if you look at the companies, they advocate a lot about this, like, oh yeah, we do diversity and inclusion. We have a rainbow. Look at our rainbow. Look at this beautiful rainbow that we have. We have a unicorn and everything. I'm like, this is not what diversity and inclusion is about. Diversity and inclusion is about diversity of thinking, culture, perception, language, linguistic, behavior, mentality, business modules, all of that. And from Black Americans to Asian Americans to Africans to West Indians to Middle Easterns to Europeans and Australians, all of these demographics bring a diversity into your company. It's not about the show off. It's not about the skin color of looking diverse. It's about what are we presenting to the table that you have not had before. And think about it this way. Dubai, where I've worked, is a hub, is a media hub that is international. There's no diversity and inclusion departments in any company in Dubai. Yet Dubai has people from everywhere around the world. I'm pretty sure a lot of my Indian folks understand because there's a lot of Indians in Dubai and a lot of Latin Americans and Africans and Middle Easterns as well. So, and this area of the world where people from multiple backgrounds come, yet there's no diversity and inclusion department. And here in America, you have a diversity and inclusion department. That was a foreign concept to when I told my friends who worked in Dubai. They were telling me like, how do you have a diversity and inclusion department? What is that? Why do you need this? Aren't you already diverse? Aren't there already people there from different backgrounds? I was like, welcome to America. Welcome how things are. And the thing is that hubs like Dubai and France, which are high on advertising, and London, learn from the United States. Globalization, localization, yet the United States does not learn from them. It's the US targets to these countries and utilizes their resources, but they never allow these countries to lead them or take lead on projects at all. Think about it this way. Well, I know we don't have a lot of time and everything. I'm not going to go through this a lot. I just want you guys to think as cultural individuals who come from different backgrounds. Take a look at your intelligence traits. Now, I will send you, Olga, if you still have the link, can you please send it to the chat?
I will take a look. Give me a second. I'll find it.
Take your time. So, when you're born and raised in different countries, there's certain cultural behaviors that you do or a certain way that you navigate life. That's really different, and that tells a lot about like what are your intelligence levels. So for example, if you're a body intelligence, which is body kinesthetic, you move around a lot with your body. I have high body intelligence. As you can see, I move around a lot. I mimic behavior. When I am immersed in a culture, I mimic their behavior, their actions, how they behave, how they move around, because just my body is intelligent. So when you take the test, look at what are your natural intelligent traits, and think of like, how do I navigate my surrounding by adapting to these traits? Some people have high visual intelligence, like they're great designers. Some people have high musical intelligence, like myself, who know how to listen, and they perform well by listening. So they listen to people and they perform well. So these are just things for you to think about, and when Olga will send you the test, I will find it as well. If you don't find it, Olga, that's fine. But these are just things for you to know, to realize when you're navigating any kind of space. And that's pretty much it, that what I wanted to present. The bottom line of all, this presentation is to give you guys my experience and how I've navigated things. And I'm a huge advocate of multicultural thinking and bringing new ideas to the table and everything. What I would like to take out of this is my experience, but also how does your experience integrate into it. But at the same time, I want to tell you, do not be ashamed of your accent. Do not be ashamed of your thinking, of your perception. Always think that you are bringing something to the table that the company where you're going to be working with has not thought of yet. And it's going to be a challenge. It's an everyday challenge for everyone. And understand that These are the dynamics. Understand where a white American person comes from. We always say like, oh, white people this, white people that, white people that. Understand, you know, after this presentation, how the system has been built. So what can you do to navigate it? You know, cultural intersection, advocating to, you know, your surrounding of like, what are the things that we have in common? You know, asking questions, asking about things, everything, proposing new things. Don't be ashamed to propose. It's You shouldn't be ashamed of proposing new ideas to your company, even to the CEO. Because let me tell you this: let's suppose a copywriter who was born and raised in Beijing and comes to the United States, and this company maybe wants to intersect to China or like expand to China, may bring something to the table that the CEO, who is white American of this company, will never realize like, oh my God, we needed this. So hierarchy should not be an issue, even though it is. But there's this idea that like hierarchy does not allow you to speak up. Because as much as you will learn from the CEO of a company, what they have built, they need to learn from you and what you can bring to the table, even if you have 1 year of experience. So think about that. And I will open the floor for questions, Olga.
Sure, go ahead. I cannot find the test, unfortunately.
It's fine.
Uh,
I'll find it. I'll send it to everyone.
sure. Let's start with the questions. Just put your question in chat, and then, or like your name, and I'll call you.
Mhm.
And first goes. I see Gabriela. Me. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Gabriela.
How do I raise my hand? How do I raise my hand? God, I've been using Zoom for 2 semesters. Anyway, Jad, thank you so much for joining and sharing your experience, and it was just amazing. So a thing that I have circulating that I don't know how to ask it, but okay. Anyway, so I came here 3 years ago, so I always received the advice to use my background. Anyway, I'm from Bulgaria, so anyway, to use my background as an asset and as a strength. So my question is, how? Imagine I'm on an interview. I'm asking this because most people here are juniors or sophomores who don't have much experience working, and they're on an interview, want to get an internship or something, and so they
Mhm.
want to use the background as their strength and what diversifies them from the other interviewers. So
Mhm.
how do you
Mhm.
present that in a way that they will say, yes, we want this person? You cannot just say I'm from another country. And
Of course, definitely. You can't just like come in, oh, like, oh, hey, I'm from France, hire me because
yeah,
France is awesome. No, it doesn't work like that. It's look at the company, research what the company is looking for, research the position, their history, everything, their services, their campaigns. I'm assuming we're talking in the media and marketing industry.
yeah,
Look
yeah.
at what they've done and everything. Look at their markets and see again cultural intersection. How did you growing up in where are you from, Gabriela?
Bulgaria.
From Bulgaria. Okay, so and not necessarily something that is common in Bulgaria, but like you growing up in Bulgaria, what was a skill that you naturally built on because you were born in that culture? So if it's, for example, you're quick to respond because maybe in your culture, like people act fast and everything. I'm assuming, I don't know. Um, so you can present that to the table, and when they're saying like we're looking someone who likes to work in a fast-paced environment, when you're in the interview, well, you know what? I remember once when I was working on a project and I finished it in like 1 day when I was in Bulgaria, and like it was a project for a school for school performance or something, and like I'm just naturally fast, and then you can show them that and you can present that because and then they will look at you like, oh, like you have don't have experience working yet in companies, but you do have that skill. So it's really anything you bring from your experience is needed. Of course, when you come to interviews, people want to ask you, this is what you need to do, and this is everything you need to do, and you have to present yourself as though you want to learn. But also, what do you bring to the table? But how does that intersect with what they need? So, for example, if they are a fashion company and you've had a huge passion for fashion and you've worked on that before, bring that, you know. And it doesn't always have to be cultural, but it has to be like, what are the common things between me and this company?
Mhm.
I need to come present it,
Yeah. Thank you.
of course. Anybody else?
Let's go, people. That's such an amazing opportunity. Ask questions. Go ahead, Alan.
Hey Jad, what's going on?
Hey.
So I just want to like the climate of New York City, right? So obviously we're a giant metropolitan city and we have a bunch of different people in the city. What's it like from your experiences working in New York City in media? Like, is it like what you described with like, there's like a segmented diversity department, people are more kind of conscious and they're not trying like the company isn't trying to sell diversity rather than like there's genuine awareness and consciousness of all the different people going on in New York City.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, well, you know what? There's definitely like two perceptions of that. There's definitely the advertisement of like, oh, we're diverse and everything, but we're gonna do things the way they are, and that's it, and we don't care about you. And then there's the other side, which are like smaller companies, and I'm pretty sure Olga knows this from working, being at the Growth Initiative, which is a program that we presented with Kenny. Um, there are companies who highly advertise about that, so what's kind of like a little bit interesting about it is that it's either or. It's either a company pretends that we care about diversity and whatever, but they don't do anything about it, or a company is high on like diversity and caring about that everything. And it really depends on like who runs the company, because most of these companies talk about diversity and inclusion are run by Americans, whether black, white, or Asian or whatever. It's run by people who were born and raised in America and follow that system. But foreign companies who work here, which are a lot but kind of rare at the same time, have a very different perspective. They look at like, we're global, so we see what you guys are doing here, but yeah, there's a whole other world out there that you guys don't know about, and this is what we're looking for. So you kind of have like three different types of mentality: the companies who present diversity but don't do anything about it, those who are, and like an example of these companies can be like, I don't know, maybe it can be Viacom, probably not.
Yes,
And
yes, I agree. Yes.
yes, probably. And the companies who don't care, and other companies maybe who really do can be like maybe BET, I guess, who care about diversity because it's black entertainment television. I have a lot of thoughts about it, but and then you have third companies who are like owned international, and they just have a very different perception of like, we're not looking at a race here, we're looking at people who bring different cultural implementations into what we're trying to do. So that has been my exposure. And you know what? For you to venture, it really depends on like what you're looking for. It's hard to find maybe like a company where it goes hand in hand with what you're thinking. And unfortunately, we live in um, modern day society where we have to think about these things when we're applying for a company. Like, yes, this is a copywriting job. Yes, I want to be a copywriter. Yes, it pays well, but I'm working in a place where there's no appreciation for culture, and I have to work under the man, and like it's affecting my mental health, and it's affecting my performance. So when you're interviewing for somewhere, you guys maybe are still like in the beginning of your career. Was like you. At first, I wanted to get a job. Like, it doesn't matter. Right now, I'm like, I'm interviewing the companies. I'm like, so tell me a little bit about like, what is your ideas on like diversity, but not just diversity. Like, do you have foreigners who work here? Like, you do understand that I'm Lebanese and Haitian, right? You do understand that I have an accent. I just want you to be aware of that. And that's what I tell, what I've told, well, now I'm in Transperfect. So, in my, in team, people know where I'm everything, but I'm just giving an example of like, I just want you to understand where I'm from, because sometimes I may slip and I will start talking like this and I can't do anything to help it. So it may come out, just so you know. So I don't want you to be shocked when this comes out. So, like give them what they're expecting. So I think that would answer your question in terms of like what you're looking for, Alan.
Yeah, that was very good. Thank you, Jad.
Thank you, Alan. I think you can always, reach out to us or Jad or Kenny and also ask advice when you have a list of things you want to do, and maybe we can help you somehow. to come up, because I want to work in the cultural place as well. It's very important,
Mhm.
I think, for it creates good synergy. Let's go. Next is Luisa. Luisa, go ahead.
Hi, Jad. Thank you so much.
Hey, Louisa.
Hey, thank you so much for being here. It was a really great presentation. I definitely can relate to what you were saying about a scripted ways of doing things, especially when you're new in the industry. You're like, oh, so this is how it's done, but can it be differently? And they're like, no.
Absolutely.
My question to you is, I saw your LinkedIn profile, and I really like that you have experience in working in many industries within marketing, CPG, healthcare, even entertainment. How were you able to navigate through all these different industries and kind of shift um, your experience in other areas?
Um, I think that also relates to adapting to environment, but not necessarily cultural, but just adapting to different, you know, areas and industries. So, like, I've started off with CPG. Like, my first client was Pepsi when I was with BBDO, and also HS Blum Bank. So I was working with banking and uh, CPG, which is basically Pepsi. So, and it was fun because like it's a CPG brand. There's a lot you can do with it and everything. And then we start to realize that like, oh, there's like more automotive brands that you work with. When I was with McCann, I worked with Jaguar and Ford. So I built upon that experience and everything. I've just like been very multifaceted and understanding like how can you have fun with different brands. But that's because my approach was very, I had a very like approach towards things. Like healthcare, for example, was which the extent of my clientele right now is new to me. So there's not a lot of fun with it, but I had to learn that again. So I had to like not have too much fun with it and everything, but more dive into it. So it's just a matter of like being open and learning at first. And again, like I think, Louisa, my suggestion to you would be like first, when you're presented with something new, like a new industry, okay, go in, learn, adapt, take notes, see how it's going. All right. So how can I like bring, my strength into this from my experience by working with CPG, for example? And this is not just about, like different industries, but it's also about, maybe switching from marketing to client servicing or to creative, like switching positions and roles. And I think this all depends on your interest and how you naturally navigate, uh, every industry. What I would suggest for you to learn about industries, honestly, it's like, what do you want to learn about exactly? Like, what interests you? Is it music? Is it management? Is it CPG? And when you look into those, there's not really like textbooks about it. It's not that I don't believe in textbooks, but your learning, for me, from my experience, again, there's no right or wrong, was people, talking to people who work in these industries. So, what is your interest, Louisa, like, if you don't mind me asking you?
Cosmetics.
Cosmetics. Okay. So beauty and cosmetics, all right? So in your network or with people that you know and everything, the fashion or beauty bloggers that you know who work in this industry, connect with them and ask them, so tell me a little bit about what you're doing on Instagram. Follow the ones who are like the influencers and everything. I don't believe in the gram too much, believe me. So, but look at the companies that work with beauty and cosmetic brands. Not necessarily L'Oreal, but like ad agencies who work for those. And I think this comes from you just being out there, which brings me to say nothing ever good comes out. You will never find a resource if you're going to stay silent and stay at home. If you're not going to put yourself out there and talk and say what's on your mind or like just speak up and ask a question out loud, nothing's going to happen to you. And we're tamed in this country to not speak our mind, which is weird because the national anthem is land of the free, and I'm like, if I say something, I'll get judged right away. I'm like, so now I'm allowed to say everything. I'm like, how does this go hand in hand with your national anthem? So I think you should really speak up and say what's on your mind. So if you really want to learn about cosmetics and everything, maybe you can like do a LinkedIn post and like, I'm really interested in navigating, CPG from a beauty and cosmetics perspective. Anyone can link me to anyone. I just want to have like a conversation starter. I know it may sound a little bit weird to do because maybe nobody has done it before, but you know what? Why don't you be the first person to do it? I mean, this is what LinkedIn is for, isn't it? Isn't it professional connections? Why not try something new? If you don't have anyone in your network, maybe just present it. Like I have some ideas regarding, cosmetics and marketing, and I have like something I want to present, but I kind of really want to have like some consultation from someone. And maybe your friends will tag someone that they know. But how will you know if you don't ask about it? If you really don't know anyone? And honestly, who is gonna judge you? Like, come on. What's the worst they're gonna say? Like, oh, this Louisa chick just posted that she's looking for someone to talk about cosmetics. Like, big whoop, so what? Let them say it. Like, what's embarrassing about that? You know what I mean? You shouldn't be afraid of it. Like this is what LinkedIn is for. People have been speaking up their minds all the time. So just go ahead and do it. You got nothing to lose. What image is gonna bring that to you? If anything, people will think like, oh, like she's interested in something and she's asking for help. I mean, isn't that what we use Facebook for? Does anybody know anyone who's looking for a roommate? I'm like, okay, does anybody know anyone who knows cosmetics on LinkedIn? So yeah. Was that too much, or was that too intense, or was that I don't know.
That was great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, it's an amazing point. Thank you so much. We have a last question, and it goes to Gurji. Gurji is our vice president, so he helps to do and he's also creative director. He works 24/7.
What
So
up?
thank you,
What up,
Gurji.
man? Thank you so much, Jad, for being here. Especially after Kenny, this is like in the same sequence. This is such a great event. Um, my question I want to ask. So I heard you talk about cultural immersion and how naturally we, as coming from different cultures, we're able to adapt. We have to adapt to the presence, the physical presence that we are within. So I want to ask, as a starter, just entering the industry, and sometimes even have to take up a job at a company that may not be as diverse as maybe you would ideally want it to be. How do you go about navigating the relationships that you develop in the office, and how do you build sort of that chemistry with the rest of the team, even though you're coming from a different culture, and then maybe predominantly they're from a singular culture together?
Right. That's really um, all right. First of all, let me check the chat room really quick. Okay,
Right.
nobody here from who I work with. I'm just kidding. Making sure, like, oh, no one's here because I didn't share this with my. I'm just kidding.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty much factual. Like, and even, and my team knows this. Like I'm
Yeah.
the only person of color in my team.
Right.
Me and my colleague who I recommended for the job, she's from Namibia, and we're really good friends, and she's working with me, So it's kind of apparent that we're not from a singular culture, and I have been pretty eminent about where I'm from and how I act and everything. Sometimes it is challenging, and you know what? I'm not mad for the fact that it's challenging, of like sometimes how like my cohort or like my colleagues don't quite understand, me or what I'm saying, and I have to adapt to that, but this is fine. It's the way that it is. I don't think it should bother you, to be honest, like when you're getting a little bit of like pushback or like, I mean, it will bother you initially, but when you start thinking of like, you know what? I have so much other things going on in my life that are much more grander than this, and this is just a job, and I need to make
Right.
my plans and survive. And remember one thing that, um, you know what? You need finances. I know this is a little bit off topic, but I'm saying this to everyone. You guys need to make money. I'm not saying like to be rich, but you guys need to be financially surviving right now. So it doesn't matter where you work. It doesn't matter. Like do whatever you need to do because this economy is going down. This
Right.
economy is going like down, down. So if that means like working 9 to 5 with a bunch of white people all the time who talk the same way, you'd be like, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thing,
Right.
carry on. Now, how do I navigate? You know what? Like I just be myself. Like I don't really like yes, sometimes I naturally feel like I have to adapt to talk like a Chad instead of a Jad.
Right.
That's kind of like natural. you know, because we learn to adapt to American culture, so it's fine. But at the same time, like I'm just myself, you know. I'm always this humorous person. I overly communicate. I always show off the positive things, and I avoid showing any sense of like, you know, negative or like negative behavior, so they don't call me out on that, because it's easy for white people to call you out as like an immigrant or like a person of color, or like you being aggressive or defensive. And that's happened to me before, where I was like, how the hell did they see me as defensive while I was just asking a question? So I try to compensate for that by being overly communicative and like being on top of the game and everything, so they can see, you know, the good side of things. And that's what you naturally do. You know that you have natural good qualities. Maybe being fast, responsive, communicative, friendly, on top of your game, talented. Navigating these spaces, these things should show more than your background or your culture or where you come from, because they're
Yeah.
looking for these things and they're not looking for your background, unfortunately. You
Right.
know, but when does your background come into place? Like, we have a new French client coming in. Who's gonna take it? Well, none of these white people speak French or any other language, so I'm like, guess who's gonna take it?
Right.
We have an Arabic speaking client. Well, guess who's going to take it? You know, guess who's going to relate to it? And when you're on the call with someone who is French speaking, and you have a third person who's white American, doesn't speak anything, and you're like speaking in French with them all the damn time, you know, your white colleague will be like, "Oh my God, that's so cool! You guys are speaking French!" Like, and you're both like looking at him like, "We're actually doing a business deal here. Like, this is nothing cool. Like, I'm here because I'm helping your business, because I have the skill that you lack, that you could have learned, but you're lacking right now, and I'm getting you this business. So it needs to come where it's needed. Your culture needs to come where it's needed. It's not the first thing. The first thing
Right.
is you being talented in your work.
Right.
Second thing is, you know, what you bring from your culture that is going to benefit. And listen, sometimes some companies, they look at culture first and talent
Right.
second, because
Right.
that's what they need. Some companies don't look at culture at all.
Right.
They need talent, or they just need to follow things. So it really depends on like what company you want to work for, you know?
Right. Got it. Thanks so much, Jen. Thanks so much.
All right.
Thank you so much, Jad. That's it, everyone. Whoop whoop. It was fun. I think I'm becoming Anthony in some way. So I'm really happy that we had you today, and we've got so many insights. And I'm sure that AMA, everybody is just like super excited, and your students as well. So you can connect with Jad. He just put
My
his
email, yeah.
email.
You can send on my email, Olga, and you guys have me on LinkedIn, so please.
Definitely. If no, somebody didn't have this information, you can always reach out to me. I have Jad's information, and I'll just share it with you. And also, if you need a Zoom session, reach out as well. Thank you so much, Jad. It
Of
was
course.
so
Thank you so much,
lovely
Olga.
seeing
You're
you.
amazing.
You are amazing. I mean, we're just exchanging compliments. We hope we have a wonderful week. Stay in positive mood, and just, you know, enjoy your day today.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you, Jen.
everyone.
Thank you. Take care.